Hello, welcome to Streaky Mastering TV with me, Streaky, and Shay, who is my assistant here at Streaky Mastering. I just want to say before we kick off, it's a Friday, it's Q&A day, we're a little bit jaded, end of a long week. We're not actually in jail, that is the studio window, and it's got slats on it to move sound around like a diffuser. And that's it really. So Shay is going to ask me some questions and hopefully I can answer them. They're ones that have come in on the comments on the video blog that I'm sure you're all avidly watching. So crack on.
Right, first one is from a guy called Critical Imprint, username, and he says, "Hello, I'm confused on where to leave my levels in the main mixer bus. All the talk of -6, -4, etc. Is that just to make sure that nothing peaks above -6 or -4? Also, I use a lot of compression and different effects on my individual tracks. Do you recommend taking them off or leaving them on, if I take them off so they're dry, before sending them to you? Or can I leave some of the channels, including the effects on those channels, because of how it makes the track pump?" So I take it means sort of side chaining there or something like that.
Okay. Can't remember any of that.
Okay,
I think
cool.
the gist of it is,
yeah.
does he have to take the compressors and limiters and stuff off of his individual tracks?
And what's the -6, -4 thing going on? Leaving headroom, basically.
Oh, right, okay. Well, you need to leave some headroom in the mixes so that the mastering engineer's got some space to work, because if you crush everything so it's just flat lining and it's a square all the way across, you're obviously losing all your peaks at the top and the bottom. It doesn't really work like that, but at the top peaks anyway.
Yeah.
So you're shaving it all off, and it means that you can't then use really nice analog limiters and compressors, because that's really what you're paying for with the mastering. You're paying for somebody who's only listening to the final product and is giving it a little polish, like a little French polisher who's just looking at it, giving it a nice sand and a nice kind of overall sound, rather than worrying about the individual tracks. Now, when he says that he's worried about taking compressors and limiters off of individual tracks, when I say taking limiters and compressors off, that is to do with the mix bus itself. So it's nothing to do with the actual tracks, because that is the sound. You wouldn't get the same sound kick drum in a mix if you took the compressor off of it, because it wouldn't smack as much. So you wouldn't get the actual sound of the mix and the way that all those textures and sounds go together to actually get the sound of a track. So it's not that, it's just on your mix bus at the very end, instead of putting mastering plugins on, everyone's got an L2 or some kind of limiter that they slam on whilst they're mixing. Well, that's fine, and I've said it before, leave it on and send a version to the mastering engineer with it slammed to death how you've been listening to it. But also you need to send him a version without those limiters on the mix bus or compressors on the mix bus, because basically he's going to do a much better job than you can, or, well, he might, maybe not, but hopefully he can do a better job than you at limiting it properly, so that he's just shaving the tops of the peaks off nicely, rather than just chopping them off and pushing things and crushing things to death. Does that answer it?
That's pretty much bang on.
And he wants to know about pumping. So what he's talking about is a ducking effect that you get from like Daft Punk records.
Yeah, like the side chaining thing, that's for individual tracks. So
what, he's talking about doing it for individual tracks,
yeah,
rather
like,
than the whole mix.
Yeah, so like
oh no, don't take
some of the channel settings.
But if you want to do the side chain thing where you've got the track moving like that, that's something that can be done in mastering as well, because you can get a multi-band and then run the highs off of the kick, so the kick is moving moving the top and the bottom at the same time, so it sounds like it's sucking. It's called ducking. So it's going in and out. But you can leave that on the mix if that's the sound that you've got going. Leave it on and then just bring the level down a little bit on the master fader, so that you've still left some room, but the track's sort of pumping a little bit. You know, that's more of a mix thing. That's not my bag, but I'm sure there's many a video you can watch that will tell you how to do that. So
yeah, next question is
from
Luciano Dato. I hope I've said that right. And
Screensaver,
second time it's happened. Says, "Hey Streaky, are you aware of the EBU R128 recommendation? What are your thoughts on this?"
I think he's talking about some kind of like European Broadcast Union rules on levels and loudness.
Okay.
Which I think is really rubbish, because you can do what you want to do as long as it sounds good. That's the main thing. You're kind of listening to things and working out whether it sounds great. I think, yeah, it's nice to have, I guess in broadcasting, that's what it's about. I guess that there's certain limitations and there's certain boundaries, but if you're dealing with things that are going out to a club or whatever, that's really down to you. You're never going to push things too far so they're distorting, hopefully not, and you're going to make them sound nice. I think that, you know, rules are there
to be bent, not broken.
Yeah,
to be,
that's true, yeah, and you're listening, so you've got to work it out. So I'm sure it's quite nice for people to have these guidelines to know what they're doing when it comes to broadcasting, but, you know, we're not really dealing with that. We're dealing with making records sound good. So, you know, that's really down to listening with your ears. Keep cranking it until it's too loud or it's too crushed, and then pull it back and play with it and do that. So when it comes to guidelines like that, I don't really care.
That's a good, yeah, fair enough. Right, the next question is more of a topic, because I had a conversation recently with someone that disagreed with me that there's a difference between a mixdown and a master. So
there is
basically, exactly. But just to outline the points of the differences between a mixdown and a final master, like there is obviously a difference. So what are these differences, in your opinion?
Well, a mixdown, you're listening to the individual tracks and you're listening to how they work with each other, and you're listening to the sounds, going back to the textures that I talked about earlier on. You're listening to how they work together, how the harmonics of tracks work, and you're listening to the balance, the overall, how the guitars balanced against the drums and things like that, and you're listening to the compression of each individual channel on the desk. So that's really what you're doing in mixing. And mastering, you're not listening to that at all, really, because you haven't really got a lot of control over whether the drums are too loud or things like that. What you're trying to do is, again, going back to the first question, is you're kind of working with the veneer of the record. You're kind of listening to it as a whole. You're not listening to it as individual tracks. You're going, okay, how's the balance of the top and the bottom? Is it too MIDI? Is it too SE? Is it too splashy in the top end? Has it got too much low end? Has it got too little low end? It's kind of, you're listening more as a, you know, it's a very tight graphic equalizer or tone controls in your car. It's like the ultra tone controls for mastering. Whereas if you're mixing, you're not really doing that, and it's very hard to get your head in that space. I don't know how anyone can do it. I've tried to do it before by mixing my own music, and I couldn't master my own mixes because I was too worried about the sound of individual instruments and where they were sitting in the mix, to then get my head around, you know, taking it away from that and listening to it as a whole and how it all sat as a sound. And you can't. It's very difficult. It's a totally different mindset. I don't know how people can mix and master together
especially
at the same time.
Yeah,
well, in the same session, and also, you know, if you're a great mix engineer, then obviously it's going to sound great, and there's not a lot a mastering engineer needs to do. But the chances of that happening are very slim. And also, it's nice to send it off to them, even if you are that good. It's good to send it off to a mastering engineer just so that you get a kind of somebody else who listens to the veneer of all these tracks every day and knows how things should sound and knows if the low end's totally right, just as a kind of check before it goes off into the wider world, because then it's, you know that everything, all bases have been covered and you've had a different set of ears on it.
Yeah, it's just an impartial part as well, like that they haven't been there while you've been making it or mixing it down. They're just listening to it as it's a new part.
And they can then phone you up and say, you know, or say to you when you're in the session, just move that and tweak this, and we can get it sounding better. You know, if you knock the bass down a bit, then suddenly this is going to pop out when I've got my compressors on it, because I'm dealing with the whole mix rather than just dealing with how the compressors on the vocal are sounding. I'm going, okay, well, if I do this with the low end, then it's going to move. The compressor's going to work differently to the tops.
And the importance of having someone else, or if they haven't been making it, the importance of having someone else master it to who mixed it, or the importance of leaving it, if it's the same person, leaving it for a day, or doing something in between, a project in between, just to get a...
Yeah, I think so. You've got to take yourself away from it. It's very difficult to listen to something intensely when you're listening to the balance. In the same way as if you're recording, it's very hard to then mix it too. You know, each section should have a separate engineer on, really, because then it's a team player, and if you're working at a high level, then that's what you need. Everyone has their specialist job. I mean, I only specialise in mastering, and I wouldn't even think to go and mix a track for somebody. I wouldn't even consider recording. I wouldn't even know where to start. I'm sure I might be able to blag it, but I wouldn't know what I was doing, and I wouldn't be confident in doing it. I wouldn't want to mix for somebody. I just wouldn't know what to do, really. It's not my thing.
So yeah, the differences are immense, basically.
Yeah, totally.
You can't consider mixing down a track as a master.
No, I don't know
finished
how
song.
anyone can do that. It's bizarre in my head.
Well, that was my conversation. So
if you can, and you're getting great results, good on you. But
it's always good to have a second set of ears.
I think it's good to have specialists. I think it's good to have specialists doing whatever you're doing in life. You know, everyone can do DIY, but isn't it so much better when you get a painter in?
Exactly. Yep. And then you've got someone else to blame when it goes wrong.
Well, it just looks their cutting in is so much better than your cutting in. It's always sloppy, and you can't be bothered. You don't really know what you're doing. It's a mess.
Yeah.
It's the same with everything. Whatever DIY chores you
I'm
like.
pretty good at DIY, so I don't know.
You're one of them.
But yeah, that's all the questions really so far. So thank you very much.
If you've got any more questions, please leave them in the comments or send us an email, and please subscribe to the link above. And I think it might be there. Not sure.
Just here, I reckon.
Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. See you next week.